Good morning. We are going to be learning the Sikha Parshas Chukas, Chelek, Chavches, Sikha Aleph. Now, the Sikha is on a Rambam in Hilchis Paraduma, Paragimel Halacha Dalit. Now, the whole Rambam is a long uh, piece, and we're going to just get started with the basic concept of the Rambam, what the Rebbe stresses, and that the Rambam starts off talking about what we did with the Afer of the Paraduma. And he speaks about there are three parts what happened with the Paraduma, with the Afer. One, it goes to the Chil, it's put in the Chil, one is put in Har Mishcha, and one is given out to the Mishmaros. Now, the Rambam explains there, what do we do with that? The one that is given, he starts backwards, which is not a common phenomenon, but that's really just a style, which way you deal with it. There's also reasons for it, but it's not for our discussion. The Kahanim used it to be Mekadesh, the water for the Ephah Parah. And that which was you put in Haramishcha was exactly that's what you use to sprinkle from the it's a it's a paraduma. That's what it's made for. Now this is the key. The third one, muchan umit mutzna. It was prepared, ready, and stored. Now the Islam has been a Yisrael Mishmeres, that it was intended for. There's a pasuk that it should be l'mishmeres, guarded. That you guard it, you put into a private area, you hide it, or not hide it, you put in a safe area. And then he adds, if a cold para should say from it. And so did you do for every para that was in the chayim. Now, I want to mention the general concept of this idea of storing the Ephah para in the hill. What was its purpose? Now, we're going to see what the Rebbe says, and we're going to show you how there are opinions that follow that approach and how the Rebbe was learning shot in the Rambam. However, I want to just give you a quick general concept what goes on with this thing. First of all, there's a medrash which says, and Rashi quotes it in Parshas Chukas, v'yikchu elecha. Now this is a pasuk that we're cooking zachol in the Maimer v'yikchu elecha of Da'at Tetzaveh. So it says la'olam inikreis al shemecha. It's always called your para. Para she'asa Moshe Rabbeinu, the para that Moshe made. In other words, years later, we're talking about all the paras that come. It's all called on them. Why? So the Sifsei Chachamim says avert, which is creates a tumult in the world. Well, because when Moshe made the para, you put into Hara Mishcha the kind of the day. Little paras hakesh got you menu. The Pirush Rashi the Samuch. What does it mean mekatsh mimenu? B'chol paras etzichel arev mi para shel Moshe. Every para must have from Moshe's para. Now the Chiddush, this is Chachamim. There are others who say that. And we're going to see, and some earlier people that say that. But the Chiddush says Chachamim that he says v'lav hochi, if you don't put information, psulo la'efer para. It's possible lekach nekreis lekach nekrein kula al shamaisha. That's why they're all called Moshe. And the Trumas Hadeshin is Pirush on Chumash says it's also Kol HaParas that Yikra al Shimcha shekulam tzrichan le'efa para shamaisha. They all need Moshe's para. Now they talk about the one not in Chil. They talk about the one in the Haramish, which we said the Ma'arim. But as we'll see, many people associate this. We're not going to get into it with the din of Mishmeres. There's a shita of Rabbeinu Eliyakim. He says, based on a Gemara, I'm not getting into the details of that, where the Gemara talks about Moshe's, where he's brought down about that using the other paras. He says there can't be less than 2 paras at a given time because Moshe's remain forever, because it must have it, because you have to mix in Moshe's into everybody. Okay, so some say that is the Mishmeres, but let's see how the Rebbe learns Pshat in Rambam, and we'll get to that eventually. I just wanted to give you that introduction. Now goes the halacha of the Rambam, the point that the Rebbe focuses on. V'teisha para adumas nasu v'shenestavu b'mitzvazu at shechor v'bayis v'shni. There are 9 paras. Rishayna asa Moshe. Rabbi, the first one Moshe made. Shni asa Ezer. Sheva me Ezer at chur mabayis. I'm going to take sides in the machlekes, and he brings 7 from Ezer chur mabayis. V'asiras yasa melech HaMashiach. Meheira yigole amen kain yiratz. That's the way that Rambam ends this halach. So the Rebbe is meir the following. Who cares? You know that Rambam writes Nagdoma that the sefer is halachas. What does he need to bring the amount of the purpose? Of all the generations. I mean, why a history lesson? Second, what does he talk about? What's going to happen? Shiur is going to make the 10th part. What difference does that make? La halacha. And then he says, what he adds up, Meheira Yigola Amin Ken Yirodson. That's not brought anywhere in the Razal. Because then you could have said that that's the source of it. I don't know, because it says somewhere that point. So why does he add that? Why does he add a tefillah? Makosha, tefillah. And regarding Bias HaMashiach. That's the third question. Fourth question that I've asked is, even if you're going to tell me you wanted a tefillah, you wanted to ask a Mashiach, why here? Why not in the last 2 prokim, Hilchos Malachim, where he talks about Mashiach? You should end up there. He says there are even prints of the Rambam that the title of Hilchos Malachim is Hilchos Malachim Umulchamos Umelech HaMashiach. So this is Hilchos Melech HaMashiach. And then we don't find over there that he writes any bakosha Ilam Bias Mashiach. And specifically here, Hilchos Pora Duma, where we're not talking about Mashiach, but Hilchos Pora Duma. And Mashiach is brought in as a side point. Here is where he talks about, here he brings it to. That's the Rebbe's Aris. When we're done with the Rebbe's Aris, we're going to answer 2 more questions, which bother me. And that is, what's the Amen Ken Yiratz? You just said, hey, there you go. It's just tefillah. What's the Amen Ken Yiratz? And even if you're going to tell me that he wanted to answer Amen after the bracha, why did he add Ken Yiratz in it? What both? Okay, those 2 questions are not the Rebbe's questions in this sikha. They're my questions. I'm just saying that I'm adding them in because as we go through the sikha, we'll see the okay, so the Rebbe's has a couple of breakthroughs here. First of all, that you matzniya me'efra para, which many learn has to do with ultimately, so it should be, as we'll see, the Tesis Yontiv, which I didn't read to you before, says that let me read the lashon of the Tosfos Yantiv. The Sender says ukishayavei agoyl velyo v'ra'enu eifra pora where it's hidden. Sheidash avika lecha shenim shaloch ad kan oimedes. And he brings a payit that says v'anachnu tmei v'lev shlo yutaranu kilonu ein eifra pora and v'neidem ha'achshav kados malases. We're going to know what to do. How are we going to know? Because we're going to find Vaish's para. And the Mishnah Achrona in Para writes also Moshe medes la'ad. And that's the one that stays because that you're definitely going to find from Moshe's para. It's always going to be there. So the Rebbe learns no. That's not the so it's not that there's no when we keep it in Mishmer, it's not for a purpose. It's a din. You have to have it. And the Eifer should be mutzal Mishmeres. It's a chiyuv of paraduma to be Mishmeres. And that was it's not because I need the hazor of the paraduma. It's a din of paraduma that I need. It has to stay. Even if I don't need it for hazor or to make mekadesh nothing. And I bring some lashon of the Rasag, Sadi Goin. As we know, Sadi Goin wrote a Sefer HaMitzvos, and I always say, Sadi Goin Sefer HaMitzvos takes up 2 pages. It's a poem, and then came Rabbi Yerucham Fischel Perlov, and he wrote a Sefer on it and turned it into 3 volumes. And in the poem, he writes the word Upara lemishmeres beteder. A para needs to be constantly guarded, put away, stored. So mishmeres is not a side point because you have to need it up for the kahanim or the yidden or whatever. There's a din to keep para. That's all. Why is that negay? And since he brings this chiyuv of mishmeres, so he said brings a raya to it because you see there was always para. There has to be para. Try to either stored or revealed. It was always a for a para, and not because the Rambam doesn't bring because there's a mitzvah because it was Moshe's state. The Rambam doesn't bring that at all. He doesn't go with that method. He goes with halach. There was para, they made paras, and they put them away. There was always a for a para. No, Mishmeres is part of the din of a para. It has to be. You should keep it. Since Rambam also writes Hilchos Mashiach, so he says that how are they going to do the mitzvah paradum? So he writes because there's going to be one soon. Again, not like the Teziyontim that's going to be the main thing, and not like the Python that we brought before. No, the Rambam wants to say this is it. And that's why he writes Asir Siyasa Melech Mashiach. He says, and that's why you can say what Meiri Yagola. Since there is a chiyuv to midi, there should be a paral mishmeres. So it comes out that mitzvahs paradumim requires that there should be a Gilui HaMashiach. Because you need Mashiach, you need para. We're missing it today. Today there's a chesarn, not chesarn in the Tara. There's a chesarn in mishmeres. There needs to be paradumim. It's amazing one. Even though you say today we can't do anything with it, doesn't matter. It's a din of having paradumim. So he says, we got Mashiach to come, we can have a paradumim. Okay, to note that this is very matim with the Rambam, as opposed to other Yishayim that learn differently, as we said. Rambam and Pirush HaMishnah, Maznal Kol Shivit. Then this is going to be the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. And he writes, whatever, he used the lashon of using from paradumas of the past, which I don't want to get into that sugya. It's a sugya arucha. And he writes, L'fisha hashe'eres hanish'eres mikol achas mutzna v'nishmar. It's hidden and kept. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Just it's kept. And that's why we mazin. In other words, the mazin olav is a result of the fact that it's there. Not because it has to be there. So Muchen and Mutzna and Nishra are two different concepts. Why does the Rambam use both? Because it's true. I have Baradum, I mix it. And there's nothing special about Moshe by the Rambam. It's the same. So the fact that you need Mucha, the Lashon Muchan for what? That's a result of Mutzna Mishva Nishma. It's not because I have to guard it. Now, there's an interesting smag in his Minyan HaMitzvahs, and there's a Tosefta, and he writes the Lashon. B'zeh shebechil nosan l'mishmeres migzeris hakosu shenema v'hois la'adaz b'nei Yisrael l'mishmeres. Well, of course, Xeris HaKosu. Why does he add here the word Xeris HaKosu? According to the Rebbe, it's very good. Because it's not, he didn't say it's there for a purpose. It's not just Xeris HaKosu. There's a reason. I need to have it, so I should have it like the Yontif says. Or like the other to say, when Mashiach comes, or I got to have it always to use. No! Just to be there. And as we noted, that is a Chiddush, but that fits very well with the Rama. And it's interesting that the Smag seems to say that. Yeah. So again, the Muchan that the Rambam seems to say Muchan, it's prepared for what? That's a result of the that it's Mutzna, not because you need it for that purpose. Okay. Then he goes on. He says it's not enough. Why? Because it's not. It doesn't sound like he's asking specifically for the paraduma. He's asking for Mashiach. So why here, and why put it in a place where we're not even talking about Mashiach, talking about paraduma, as we asked before. So the Rebbe says that this is with the Rebbe Shitta and how we have to treat the Mashiach. And again, this is a sugya kishal atzma. And he says that Chol mi the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim Chol mi sheinem maimen boy mi sheinem achakel biyosai keifer b'teir meishamet. From this is understood that just like the Inyan of Amun and Biyas HaMashiach is a constant, the mechakel biyosai is a constant. Again, I want to note this is a uftu of the Rebbe in the Rambam. There are. This is a big discussion, and I'm not here to get into all the details of that, but there is a big discussion from the other approaches to what we need to do, believing in Mashiach. I once wrote a whole piece on that, and I want to note that the closest to the Rebbe Shitta is the Shitta of Reb Chaim and Brisk, who learns very similar idea that the chikui from Bias Mashiach has to be really hoping for Mashiach to come. I was say that that's not, you don't have to actually hope, just have to accept that he's coming. You have to hope in general, but it's not for this discussion because it's a really intricate discussion. I'm sure it's been written up already, but the closest I found to the Mashiach is that. And he says a similar idea. And the Rebbe brings, as we say, with age from Oh, so he does. Hey, now we can understand why he writes Meheri Golo Mekani Rasim in general, and why he adds here. And why does he add Mehera? And why he writes Dafka they here in Hilchos Paraduma? Because he's coming to teach you halacha. The Rambam teaches you halachas in the way he sets things up too. That the chikui for Bias Mashiach has to be an inyan of, even when you're learning something with Erech Hagav, it has to create a desire, a tefillah. Here you go. I say, why did he do it all the time? Every time he talks about things, I'm going to give it, he should bring it out. Of course, because I'm just coming to teach halacha. Halacha he teach once. He doesn't teach halachas over and over every time it's brought down. That's the gist of the sikha. There is tons and hours to be discussed on the sikha. Molly V'Godish in Hilchas Parah and Hilchas Melech HaMashiach. But I want to take this to answer the questions that we noted. Why did the Rambam end with the words Amen and Ken Yiratz? Why didn't he stop just from Mary Yigola? And if you're going to tell me that he wanted to say and then answer Amen, he could have stopped with Amen. So I want to give a quick discussion about this issue. In Brachis, Daf Mem Hey Amud Beis, there's a discussion. Should one answer Amen after his brachas? One says Mishubach, one says Meguna. It's a good thing, praised. You answer Amen after your own bracha. And one says it's Meguna, it's a terrible thing. And the Gemara answers Habi Bein Yishalayim of Shar brachas. And one is Bein Yishalayim, and one is in other brachas. That's why. So what's the difference? So Rabbi Yenik says, when you answer after every bracha, you're saying, I'm done. But when you answer after a bunch of brachas, then you have a right to say, I'm done. But if you have that bracha, and then you go right back and make a bracha, it doesn't make sense. That's the general opinion what's wrong with it. Now, the Rambam in Hilchos Brachos writes, anybody who answers Amen after the brachas, they're Meguna. And he gives examples. Bein Yerushalayim and the benching. And Ma'ariv. Kriya Shema of Ma'ariv. As long as it's after Seif HaBrachas, you answer him. Now the Rambam says, what's wrong? What's wrong? Now that one's a little different than Rabbi Yehuda. Because the purpose of saying Amen, you don't just say Amen, not because it's after Racha, therefore I say, and if it's not, why am I going to? No, because the only reason I say Amen is to is in order to be mashlim, to show I'm being mashlim my brachas. Amen. Now, in Hilchis Tefillah, in Seder Tefillah Satzibur, so there, by Shachris, he doesn't say you should answer Amen, even though it's the end of brachas. So, what's the difference? So, when that the tzibur answers, but not him, he doesn't answer, but only by Ma'ariv. So, I saw different explanations, but one explanation I saw from the Dave Soloveitchik from Boston, that he wants to say that since it's not because there's a psaninian of answering Amen after your own brachas. It's just like idea shekvar hishlam kol brachasa. So that when there's a din of smichas gula tefillah, like by Shachris, where there's a chiyuv gomer of smichas gula tefillah, you're not allowed to say it. When the tzibur answers Amen, it's Amen. It's a din of Amen. Yours is just a notice. But by Ma'ariv, there you can do it. So with the episode part, perhaps the reason he writes here Amen is to note that he's not here to just answer Amen for Hilchis Parah Aduma. He's here to answer Amen on all of the Inyanei Mashiach, the Tefillah for Inyanei Mashiach. And through here, he's Yaitza for all other places. Could be available. I don't know, but it works beautifully with the Rebbe's about. But I wanted to add one more thing. Why the Kaini Rotzen? Stop with Amen. What's slush and Kaini Rotzen? We know that when it comes. So I want to just a quick addition to this with the sign. We know that there are many minhagim and what we do by by Birchas Kainim by the Shliach Tzibur. So Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber writes, and Ein HaTzibur Einen Amen. The Tzibur does not answer Amen after Birchas of the Shliach Tzibur, and they say Kein Yirotz. Why? So it's based on an Avudram that's brought the Beis Yosef, who writes that the Arif was asked if the Kol should answer Amen by Shliach Tzibur, Birchas Kainim, and he answers no, because only by the Kohen who's Mevarach, and the reason, because you don't answer Amen only after the Mevarach. What does that mean? So the general understanding is that in Shemon Esrei it's a tefillah, and here it's a bracha. Okay, again, I have a discussion of that in a different place where I want to bring out that the Shittas Haramam is that it is a bracha, but let's that's not what I'm not going into that right now. I'll mention it just silently. Now the Beis Yosef adds, and the Rambam also says that, he says clearly, but I want to tell you what the Rambam says clearly. There's no kohen. And he goes through the ein ha'am oimer oinen amen umaschel v'emes sim shalom. What's the sim shalom here? Kishagia sim shalom, maschel v'emes sim shalom. What's the sim shalom? Just say. And you come there. Now in Shulchan Aruch, remember what we read was that when you come to Maidim, but here it says you come to Sim Shalom. What is he? And why? He said already you come to Sim Shalom, man. What are you supposed to stop over there? I said you're going to say further. Just ain't a tzibur, ain't an amen, and finish. So I wanted to say that the Rambam Shitta is okay. That there is an amen. The amen is after Sim Shalom, because Sim Shalom is part of the Shliach Tzibur Birchas Kainim. That we'll maybe mention it soon, but I'll get to it in a moment. Anyhow, but the general understanding is that after Bakash you don't answer amen. Oh, that's hey. This is a Bakasha, a tefillah. Meheiri Yigola. So the Rambam does not want to just answer amen, because then it would be an amen after a tefillah. Therefore, he adds Ken Yirotzen. It's not a regular amen; it's an amen on with Havakosh for Havakosh. Why didn't he just say Ken Yirotzen? Rambam doesn't hold that there's such a thing as Ken Yirotzen by itself. Rambam does not like the Shulchan Aruch. He doesn't say Ken Yirotzen. Rambam don't say anything. Now there's another approach of why the Rambam doesn't say this, and again I'm going to quickly touch on that. It's brought down from Chaim Brisker that he didn't answer anything because he was afraid of. There's a Gemara in Ksubis that says that if a non-kohen says Birchas Kainim, then he's over an Isser Asay of Atem V'loi Zor. It says brought down that Reb Chaim Brisker didn't answer anything. Why? Because by answering Amen, it would make it into a bracha. And make it into a bracha, that means I'm a kabbalah, a bracha, Birchas Kainim, from a non-Kain. Based on the Gemara in Ksubis, the Chavdalid, and the now, it's a big sugi whether is there an Isser or not an Isser, when they're an Isser, not. Yeah, that's not for this current discussion. So it perhaps you can say that, as we said, that the that the amen of Birchas Kainim, so that's the way he learned. But it's the emes is that it's not muchrach, because it could be another shot in the Rambam that they don't have the way we learn it. But perhaps that the Rambam put it after Sim Shalom. One is that it shouldn't be a bracha, it should be a bakasha, but he added it to Sim Shalom. Or because there shouldn't be such an issue of Israel say, according to Reb Chaim. So, but either way, that you can say that that's why the Rambam, when he says Einon Omein is the Sim Shalom, is for those two reasons. But going back to the Rambam when he writes, so that just to show that there is a shaila how the Rambam, but it's not muchach to learn, and the general assumption is the Rambam does not hold it at Isra say to be a problem, and being that that's so, it makes out a lot of sense why the Rambam wrote Oma Kemi Rotzen, because he doesn't want to answer Amen after a tefillah, only after a bracha, and that would be the explanation. Okay. Sei gesund und stark, a guten Atzlocher Rabbi.